We get this ball rolling. Drea, what are you watching for right out of the gate tonight in Boston?
Luka's defensive energy and his defensive effort. I was on fire when it came to Luka and the lack of his defensive effort when it came to Game 3. Game 4, he responded. He played hard. He sat in the stands. He wasn't the best defender on the floor, but he showed effort. I want to see if he can take that defense to Boston.
Alan, your first impression also involves Luka.
Yes, it does, because you want to see his composure continue like we saw in Game 4, where he's just simply focusing on shot hunting, not foul hunting, not worrying about the officiating. On the road, a little bit different, but keep looking for Jason Tatum because, by the way, Luka, he can't guard you. They're talking about your defense. What about Tatum's on you? Not very good.
We'll get to some stats on that as we continue. But JWill, what's one thing you're looking for early tonight?
Will there be a pregame ritual of incense occurring before the Game 5 tonight for Mr. Kyrie Irving, one of the biggest games in his career? Now, look, obviously he struggled playing in Boston. He's been very reflective over the last several days about his time there. And it sets up where Luka will perform offensively. I think he will be engaged defensively, but what will his counterpart bring to the table this evening?
Let's hear from Kyrie, because that obviously is a huge factor in all this. He spoke on his Celtics tenure as the series shifts back to Boston tonight.
I think that's what I struggled with initially, was figuring out how I'm going to be a great player here while winning championships, while also leading a team and selflessly joining the Celtics organization or the cult that they have here. And that's what they expect you to do as a player. They expect you to seamlessly buy into the Celtics pride, buy into everything Celtics, and if you don't, then you'll be outed. And I'm one of the people that's on the outs. I'm perfectly fine with that. You know what I mean? I did it to myself.
Well, that was tough to follow. That was a lot of words there, and one of them in particular, I have a feeling we're going to see up on the Jumbotron tonight, which would be the word cult. What?
So Kyrie has been a sea of passivity throughout this season. We've been very impressed. It has led to him to have some of the best play of his career. But when it comes to Boston, I think he's still seething just below the surface. Mm-hmm. And we've seen it seep out a little bit with the fans in this series. And even though he's trying there to be respectful, he can't help it. And it's been combined with the fact he just hasn't been good in Boston since he left there. He's pretty much lost every time he's come. For a while, he was finding all kinds of different ways, and he just wasn't playing there. He was 13 of 37, the 2 games in 1 and 2. It's just something he's got to get over. He's gotten over almost everything that was plaguing him earlier in his career. He's not quite over this. This is the last hurdle.
So Jay, is this tonight? Here's the way I want to frame this, because the Mavericks are still playing for their lives, if you will, and trying to keep this thing alive. If they win tonight, then all the pressure shifts to the other side. But for the moment, all the pressure remains on the Mavericks. Yes. Is this tonight? Is this a Kyrie game or is this a Luka game?
I don't think it's fair to make them one. I think it has to be a collective game to get a Game 5 win on the road. I think both have to be elite. Both need to be engaged. We talked about it before. We said this on your radio show. If you have Team A, where your best offensive players are also your team's best defensive players, and then you have Team B, and their best offensive players are the 2 worst defensive players, you're going to choose Team A all the time. So I think the functionality and the defensive level needs to be engaged, and you need those 2 to be superstars to win Game 5, when I think Boston's going to be desperate tonight. Boston was not desperate in Game 4. I think we'll match the intensity from Boston in Game 5.
So it's interesting the way this series has gone from a Dallas perspective. Kyrie struggling in Games 1 and 2 and became sort of the central focus of most of the criticism. And then Luka, he said, "Hold my beer" in Game 3.
And don't take it away this time.
That's well played. And then, of course, they come back with the big performance in Game 4. But you've got some tape of Luka and the difference that we saw from him the other night as we look forward to this.
The difference was night and day, and I'm going to keep the same energy when I was calling Luka out for his defense as I praise him for his defense, because he responded defensively. We've said he doesn't have to be the best defensive player in the league. He just has to function on the defensive side. He has to give effort. He has to give a little bit of resistance. And again, he's going to take some bad angles at times. That's okay. Like, this is a bad angle. You shouldn't jump that pass. Now your feet are in the wrong position. But when you give effort, you can make up for some of those mental mistakes, some of those bad angles. And then look here, those same low knees that we see on offense all the time, we saw that on the defensive possession leading to this offensive play. This is what we didn't see in game 3. Now here, Jaylen Brown is getting ahead of steam. He has momentum. Look at Luka. His feet are wide, his hips are a little lower than we saw in game 3, and he's able to create resistance for a kick out. That's fine. You don't want Jaylen Brown to take that shot. Now, if you're Peyton Pritchard, you need to hit that shot, but at least Luka gave a stance defensively, and same thing here. This is a lot of time for Jaylen Brown to try and get into his bag, and Luka, again, sits in a stance, drops his hips, his hands are low, his hands are active, and he makes Jaylen Brown give up the ball. How many times did we talk about in game 1 and 2? Jaylen Brown getting downhill, Jaylen Brown creating off the bounce, Jaylen Brown getting to the rim, slam dunk plays, energy plays. Luka's effort defensively took some of that momentum away from Jaylen Brown and from the Celtics.
It feels like that both of these guys, as we're talking about it, Luka and Kyrie, are both facing mental challenges in this game. For Kyrie, obviously, it's the crucible of playing in Boston that we've talked about. He's got to get over that somehow, some way. The
crucible.
This might, well, that's what it is. I mean, for him, might be the toughest game he's ever played. If you think about it, the level where he's at in the finals, where it is, and he's openly talking about it. As you said, Wendy, this he's openly talking about is definitely still in the back of his mind. And then from Luka, it is, okay, now that we've seen the game that we've been expecting out of you in game 4, where you are more paying attention defensively, you're doing it, everything offensively is still there, but now at least you're giving the effort on defense. Now you got to do it on the road. Now you got to continue to do it. You showed us you can. You got to keep doing it, and don't let the officiating, everything else, get in the back of your mind. Both of them facing different mental challenges in this game.
Look, a game 4 in a 3-0 series is such a complicated phenomenon, right? You have one team that knows they have all of the they have room to play with, right? And the other team that is desperate, and they don't want to be humiliated. In the case of Friday night, they're playing on their home floor. So to your eye, Jay, was it a simple case of that on Friday night, or was there something we saw in that game that is repeatable, that could actually mean, no, wait a minute, here come the Mavericks, they're in this thing?
I thought the Celtics played hard. I thought Dallas played desperate. Yeah. I think Boston's going to play desperate tonight. I think it's going to be a completely different game. It's going to take an out-of-body performance by both Luka and Kyrie to extend this to Game 6.
What was the sense there? Again, Wendy has been at all these games, at every practice, been covering everything for us. What was the sense afterwards relative to something that was so completely different from what the first 3 games were?
I think there was relief from the Mavericks that they weren't going to have a sweep hanging around their neck. Great energy from the crowd in that game. Sometimes you don't know. Sometimes they all sell their tickets. There were some Celtics fans there, but it was mostly Mavs. Great energy from that crowd. I think that made a difference. And I think the thing about this is we'll never know what the last 4 minutes of Game 3 would have been if Luka didn't foul out.
Right.
You can't. You have no idea how Game 4 would have gone. To me, the way Luka played in this game, while it was very impressive, it just rammed home how frustrating the end of Game 3 was. And so to me, from where I sit, which is not as a Mavs fan or a Celtics fan, it just increased the regret on Game 3. That this series is not in that place, because now, honestly, Boston has to win 1 out of 3 games, 2 of which are home. I would give any team in the league a good chance of that situation. And they're in this because Luka, in my view, took them out of Game 3.
It is certainly possible. However, as I said before, tonight, all the heat is on the Mavericks.
Yes.
If the Mavericks win tonight, then that, I don't care who you are, but especially in the case of these Celtics, who have had all of these ghosts and these demons, and they've got to go up against Luka Doncic. Let me show you 2 separate full screens, if I can here. Cindy, we'll start with 1, and then we'll do 2. Number 1 and then number 2, because Luka, when facing elimination, has been spectacular. This includes the other night. You're going to see the numbers that Luka has put up, and you'll see the company that he keeps. When facing elimination, Luka Doncic is the #1 all-time scorer in postseason history when facing elimination, ahead of LeBron James, ahead of Michael Jordan. That's pretty fancy company to keep. Speaking of which, let's go to the other one. He has scored at least 25 points now in 11 consecutive playoff games. So for all the criticism of Luka, and it was completely warranted, no one suggesting otherwise, 11 consecutive playoff games of at least 25 points. I mean, this is royalty on this screen that we are seeing. You're sharing a screen with Michael Jordan, LeBron James, and Kobe Bryant. So he has been good. We just ask him to be way, way better than good.
He can be angry at every single Celtics fan. He can be angry at every single Celtics player. There's 3 guys he's not allowed to be angry with. They wear gray. Leave them alone. And if you do that, you're going to have a great opportunity to pull something off.
That's extremely well said.
Real
What?
quick, you think all the pressure is on Dallas?
Yes.
Tonight?
Tonight?
Well, I mean, if they lose, they lose the championship.
I
yes.
think there's a lot of pressure on the Celtics too, who have been known to give up really big leads and closing things out. And also they're at home. Everybody expects them to close out Game 5. I think that's a very undervalued thing that we're not discussing here.
We've also seen Boston shoot very poorly on their own home court. They shot poorly in Game 2. The Mavs just couldn't take advantage of it. They've shot poorly in multiple series at home.